Samantha Hayes thought she could trust the people around her, but chilling messages from someone she called Jay revealed a nightmare no teenager should face now. The secrets behind her disappearance and murder are finally coming to light. Samantha Hayes was 17, a bright and lively teenager whose presence seemed to light up every room she entered. At school, she was known for her warmth and friendliness, the kind of person who would always stop to help someone struggling or offer a kind word to someone having a rough day. Her friends often described her as unstoppable, full of dreams, and unafraid to chase them. Beneath her confident smile, however, there were aspects of her life that few people truly knew. Samantha was pregnant, a secret she kept closely guarded, sharing it only with her closest friends and a handful of family members who had promised to protect her. She worried about how the news might change her life, how the people around her might react, and whether she could face the challenges ahead. Despite this weight on her shoulders, she tried to live normally, attending school, social events, and family gatherings with a determined optimism. Her phone was both a refuge and a lifeline. Through it, Samantha stayed connected with the people she trusted most. Some of her messages were ordinary, planning weekend outings, discussing school projects, or talking about the baby she hoped to welcome in the coming months. Others were more private, filled with caution and concern. One person in particular, someone she referred to only as Jay, had begun to dominate her messages in a way that unsettled her. The exchanges started innocently but soon took a darker turn, with hints of insistence, pressure, and occasional anger. Samantha was careful, sometimes vague, sometimes delaying responses. Yet the tension in the messages was unmistakable. Despite her efforts to manage the situation, the strain began to show. Her parents noticed moments when Samantha seemed distracted, anxious, or withdrawn. Friends noticed that she occasionally avoided social gatherings or seemed unusually tense. Those who knew the truth about her pregnancy tried to reassure her. But the presence of Jay in her life was something they could not reach or control. On a warm spring evening in late May, Samantha left her house as she usually did, saying she was going to meet a friend. She carried her phone, her backpack, and her usual optimism, unaware that her life was about to change forever. That night, she did not return home. Panic quickly spread through her neighborhood and school. Posters were placed on every street corner. Social media campaigns were launched, and authorities scrambled to follow every lead. The cheerful girl who seemed invincible had vanished, leaving behind unanswered questions, a family desperate for answers, and messages that hinted at dangers only now beginning to be understood. Detectives arrived at Samantha's house hours after she was reported missing. Her room was untouched, except for her phone lying on the desk, screen dark but loaded with hundreds of messages. From the very first glance, investigators knew they were dealing with more than a simple disappearance. Her phone became the key to understanding the last days of her life. Sorting through texts, calls, and deleted messages, authorities found a pattern that painted a troubling picture. Samantha had been communicating regularly with someone she only referred to as Jay, a person whose messages shifted from casual friendliness to an increasingly controlling and threatening tone. Initially, the exchanges seemed harmless. They were short, sometimes playful, sometimes inquisitive, the kind of messages many teenagers exchange without a second thought. But as days went by, the tone changed. Samantha tried to maintain distance, but Jay pushed back persistently, demanding answers, explanations, and attention. Some texts were apologetic, some manipulative, and others outright menacing, hinting at consequences if Samantha ignored or defied the sender. Investigators noticed subtle changes in Samantha's replies. The words grew cautious, clipped, and occasionally vague. There were moments where she tried to end the conversation, only to be met with anger or guilt-laden messages. The thread became a record of escalating fear, a silent cry for help. Her friends later described incidents that, at the time, had seemed insignificant. A shadow following her down a quiet street, a sudden insistence to meet a person she didn't trust, a phone call she abruptly ended. In hindsight, all these moments fit into the sinister pattern that was emerging from her messages. Law enforcement realized that Samantha had been aware of the danger and had tried to manage it quietly, protecting herself as best as she could while still engaging in everyday teenage life. Community members grew anxious as news of her disappearance spread. Social media was flooded with pleas for sightings, theories, and rumors. Every lead was investigated, from security footage to witness statements, but the trail remained frustratingly cold. Yet, Every message on Samantha's phone was a small piece of the puzzle, each one revealing her fear, her attempts to evade danger, and the presence of someone lurking in her life with a growing obsession. As investigators dug deeper, it became evident that Samantha's disappearance was no random act. The texts were more than words. They were evidence of manipulation, intimidation, and a threat that had been building over time. Every message, every delay, every cautious response told a story of a girl trying to survive an invisible predator. In those messages, detectives sensed the tension and dread that had quietly consumed her final days. 2 weeks after Samantha vanished, the search reached a grim turning point. A hiker discovered her body near an abandoned industrial site on the outskirts of town, a place that had long been avoided by locals due to its crumbling structures and overgrown paths. The moment authorities arrived, the scene sent chills through the investigators. Samantha had been restrained, and signs indicated a struggle had taken place. The forensic team immediately began collecting evidence, noting every detail from fibers caught on her clothing to footprints in the dirt. It was clear that her death had not been sudden or accidental. It was deliberate, calculated, and brutal. The real breakthrough came when the investigators examined her phone in painstaking detail. While many messages were intact, a portion had been deleted, but digital recovery tools brought them back to light. These recovered messages revealed the identity of Jay, the person who had dominated Samantha's final weeks. Shockingly, Jay was someone in her immediate circle, someone Samantha had trusted. The texts were damning. They outlined a pattern of manipulation, coercion, and threats, escalating to the night she disappeared. There were messages showing Jay tracking Samantha's movements, questioning her whereabouts, and pressuring her to meet in specific locations. As detectives pieced together the timeline, they realized the full scope of the danger Samantha had faced. The messages described not just a controlling figure, but a person who meticulously planned the encounter that ended in her death. Samantha had tried to protect herself through careful communication, often postponing meetings and avoiding confrontation, but the messages revealed that Jay was relentless. Each attempt to evade contact was met with guilt-tripping, insistence, or intimidation, gradually wearing down her ability to resist. The community reeled from the revelation. Friends and family struggled with disbelief, grappling with the horrifying truth that someone close to Samantha had betrayed her in the most unforgivable way. The chilling messages provided a clear window into the final days of her life, showing desperation, fear, and the cruel reality that Samantha had been trapped by someone she thought she could trust. Investigators worked tirelessly to map out Jay's activities during the critical days. Security footage, phone records, and witness accounts began to align, revealing how Samantha had been lured to the industrial site under false pretenses. Every recovered message, every small piece of digital evidence, painted a picture of premeditation. What had once seemed like a disappearance without motive now had horrifying clarity. Samantha's death had been orchestrated, and the evidence lay bare in the chilling texts she had sent and received in the days before her life was taken. As the investigation progressed, detectives focused on connecting Jay to the crime, determined to understand how someone so close to Samantha could orchestrate such a horrific act. Every piece of evidence was scrutinized. Security footage, phone records, and witness statements all became crucial in reconstructing the events leading to her death. Patterns began to emerge, revealing meticulous planning. Jay had tracked Samantha's movements for weeks, noting her routines, the times she left home, and when she would be alone. The digital trail was extensive, showing not only communication but also location data that placed the suspect near Samantha at key moments. Investigators discovered that Jay had exploited Samantha's trust to manipulate her into meeting at the abandoned industrial site. Messages recovered from her phone revealed coercion disguised as concern, relentless pressure, and subtle threats that escalated over time. Samantha's attempts to evade these encounters were evident in her cautious replies, moments of delay, and vague responses meant to protect herself. The text showed a girl trying to maintain control in a situation that was rapidly spiraling beyond her ability to manage. The investigation also uncovered troubling aspects of Jay's history. Neighbors and acquaintances revealed patterns of controlling behavior, incidents of harassment, and a tendency to manipulate those around him. These discoveries painted a portrait of someone capable of extreme acts when challenged or rejected. In conjunction with the recovered messages, investigators saw the frightening depth of the threat Samantha had faced and how vulnerable she had been despite her efforts to stay safe. Authorities began piecing together the night of the murder with a chilling clarity. Jay had lured Samantha with calculated precision, knowing exactly where and when to intercept her. Forensic evidence at the scene aligned with this timeline, confirming that her death was premeditated. Each recovered message became more than a digital footprint. It was a record of Samantha's struggle, fear, and the manipulations that ultimately led to her final moments. The community followed the investigation with a mix of fear and disbelief. Friends and classmates who once assumed Samantha's disappearance might have been temporary were now faced with the harsh truth. Law enforcement emphasized the critical role of digital evidence in solving the case, highlighting how every message, timestamp, and location record helped build a complete picture of premeditation. The chilling realization settled in. Samantha had been targeted by someone who knew her life intimately. Someone who used trust and familiarity as weapons. The detectives' careful work would eventually bring the suspect into custody, but in the meantime, the case served as a stark warning. The recovered texts, coupled with the painstaking reconstruction of events, told a story of manipulation, control, and danger that had gone unnoticed until it was far too late. Samantha's final days were now documented in detail, a haunting reminder of the perils that can hide behind seemingly ordinary relationships. The arrest of Jay marked the beginning of the final chapter in Samantha's tragic story. But it was only the start of a long and painful process for her family, friends, and the community. Court documents revealed the horrifying extent of premeditation and manipulation that had defined Samantha's final weeks. Prosecutors presented the recovered text messages as evidence, illustrating the constant pressure, threats, and control Samantha had endured. Each message, each deleted line that was painstakingly recovered, demonstrated a predator systematically isolating and frightening a vulnerable teen. The courtroom was tense as these texts were read aloud, and those who loved Samantha were confronted with the cruel reality of what she had faced. The trial also revealed new details about the suspect's past behavior. Friends and acquaintances testified to patterns of obsession, controlling tendencies, and prior incidents that had never been reported to authorities. This history, combined with the text messages, painted a portrait of a person capable of extreme manipulation and violence. The prosecution emphasized how Samantha's attempts to maintain boundaries and protect herself had been met with escalating threats, ultimately culminating in her murder. Despite the overwhelming evidence, the defense attempted to cast doubt on certain elements, but the digital trail texts, phone records, and location data was indisputable. Throughout the trial, Samantha's story became more than a legal case. It became a cautionary tale. Experts spoke about the dangers teenagers face in digital spaces, particularly when someone close exploits trust and familiarity to manipulate and intimidate. Her parents, devastated yet determined, became advocates for online safety awareness, working to educate young people about warning signs and the importance of speaking up before situations spiral out of control. The tragedy sparked community programs, school initiatives, and public discussions about digital boundaries, emotional manipulation, and teen vulnerability. When the jury returned a verdict of guilty, there was a somber sense of closure mixed with grief. Justice had been served legally, but the emotional scars left by Samantha's death would persist. The case reinforced the need for vigilance, both in online interactions and in recognizing the signs of predatory behavior. In the aftermath, Samantha's memory inspired lasting change. Her parents established a foundation dedicated to supporting pregnant teens and raising awareness of digital safety, ensuring that her life and her untimely death could help prevent similar tragedies. The chilling texts that once revealed her fear and desperation now served a purpose far beyond the private world of her phone. They became a warning, a lesson, and a legacy. Samantha's story, though heart-wrenching, had the power to educate, protect, and ignite change, ensuring that her life, however brief, left an indelible mark on the world.